Welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 45, and we're returning to our standard format for tonight's show. We'll have a classic run coming from the Hulk magazine, issue 15, and the conclusion of our modern run, which was Charlie Houston's first arc, The Bottom, part 6. So, grab your issues out, strap in, sit back, relax, and get your conchu on. Yes, Looney listeners, welcome back. Thank you for joining us on Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ray. Connor is away this episode, so he's floating around in the other void. Hopefully he will come back soon. But in his stead, we have the power of Chad back with us. Chad, how are you?
Doing just fine. How about you?
Yeah, doing very well. Looking forward to these issues coming up. They're always fun, the classic ones, and as you know, well, you're a big Charlie Houston fan yourself, aren't you, Chad?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have the last part of his first arc, The Bottom, which wraps things up, and wraps things up quite well, I think. Yeah, so just before we go into that, look, we have hardly any news. But first of all, Chad, what's been doing? Yeah, how things been going?
Pretty good. Packing up, getting ready to move to a different town.
Oh, wow. Where are you going to? Oh, from and to, for Loonies.
Moving from Port Angeles over to a place called Squim.
Okay. Is that a bigger town, or is it far away?
It's just the other town over. It's actually a little bit smaller, but way closer to work.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. I know how hard it can be if you live a little far away from work. It used to take me about 1.5 hours to get to work every day. It was a bit of a slog, but yeah, we moved as well. Have you packed up all your comics?
Yeah, they're out in the garage just waiting to get in the truck.
It's it's funny. Do you have the long boxes, or do you use short boxes? Or I've seen other Loonies actually use non-standard boxes as well. I mean, how well do you take care of your comics?
Honestly, short boxes, and not as well as I would like.
Yeah, I've got short boxes as well. There's always the constant need to go and get more bags and boards. Although I'm trying to make a concerted effort to bag and board every Moon Knight issue I have, but the others actually have to take a back seat. Have you got any pearls in there, Chad? Have you got any really like valuable issues these days?
Not exactly. It's primarily sentimental value, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I mean, like, I'm not sure, are you a collector? Like, or, I mean, it's mainly just for reading?
It's primarily just for reading.
Okay, yeah. I mean, myself as well. I don't slab any comics or anything like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great. I remember one of our Loonies, showed his it's either his living room, I think, or man cave, and he had hung up all his slabbed comics. Most of them were Moon Knight, actually. It was really good. But yeah, I mean, during the years, stumbled across, just usually collecting them. Stumbled across some valuable ones now. I went to my parents' place a while ago, and I took back a lot of comics that I had still stashed over there, and I found first appearance of Deadpool, which was cool. I think first appearance of Cable, I think that was in the New Mutants or something. Gambit as well, that was a good run as well. So yeah, little gems seem to pop up here and there, but the Moon Knights don't seem to don't seem to be as valuable. They have a very high sentimental value. But what other comics do you have?
Well, to be completely honest, when it comes to the comics, I'm kind of out on my own. I really enjoy The Goon.
Oh, yes. And,
and also enjoy Hillbilly. I've been reading those a lot lately.
Are they... it's by Powell, right? Is it Eric Powell?
Yep, Eric Powell. Does
he do The Goon as well?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Because I'm familiar of the Goon, of The Goon. And they're in the works of making that into a movie or something, I hear.
Yeah, it's supposed to have Paul Giamatti and Clancy Brown.
Okay. Clancy Brown rings a bell, but I definitely know Paul Giamatti from The Rhino, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
So he'll be good. He's a great actor. And Hillbilly, I got issue 1. Very cool, actually. You actually really do enjoy that. Where's that up to now?
They just released 10. I think it was last week.
Okay, so still quite new and fresh compared to The Goon. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and I know that you're I'm assuming you're a big Spawn fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would have gotten Spawn 1 onwards, right?
To be completely honest, I haven't actually collected Spawn. I've just, actively read it when it's come out.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, I mean, there you go. As long as you're up to date with the stories and stuff, that's good. And we spoke a bit earlier, just off air, about. We both collect digital comics as well, and you mentioned there was a recent sale on Comixology.
Yeah, there was a big open free invitation to quite a few comics just yesterday.
Okay.
It was actually Rebecca that pointed that out to me.
Oh, right. Is it still going, or?
I'm not sure. I just have this recent flood of comics that just...
Right.
I took them all.
Yeah, and just finally as well, Chad, as well, I'm gonna spring this on you as well. You may have noticed recently we've done some Isla Ra comics, and we've had guests coming on just to give their top 4. Has to be like top 4 single issues. We're currently kind of collating some interviews with some cool and hip loonies. So a few of them actually put their hand up. I posted something on Facebook. And just wondering, Chad, would you be keen to do this as well?
What was that exactly?
They're basically, it's kind of like, okay, so one of our episodes we'll dedicate, I'm thinking maybe once a month or twice a month, depending on how many we get, on inviting loonies onto the show and giving us their desert island comics. What are the 4 comics of all time that you would take to a desert island, or Isla Ra, as I like to call it? What are the 4 comics that you'd like to take to that island, if they were the only 4 comics you could take with you? And it's a really fun way of actually, just getting to know the loonies a bit more, but also seeing how diverse a taste there is across the board. I reckon it'll be pretty fun to find out what your top 4 books would be, Chad.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. Excellent.
Yeah, well, I'll have to speak to you a little later after the show, and we'll see if we can find a time to record it. It is quite fun because these Isla Ra episodes are kind of like standalone. I mean, like, we usually don't report on the latest news and stuff. It's we just keep it contained to finding out more about the loonies, like how you come into comics, and which I think we have discussed already, just briefly when you first came on the show. But how you got into Moon Knight, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of fun to do, and we try to incorporate a bit of theatrics into it as well. So might have you on at the Grant Mansion, or I might have you at Jenna's Diner, as we had lately with Rick. Just a bit of fun. So excellent. Let's organise that.
Hi, this is Phil Parrish from the Capes and Lunatics podcast, a proud member of the collective, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
All right, well, Loonies, as I mentioned, there is not much news at all this week. We have here Marvel 9 characters confirmed for Phase 4, and there are like 20 or so characters like either confirmed or rumoured for Phase 4, and our boy Looney, sorry, not Looney, our boy Mooney comes in at number 10, I think. Again, the same sort of spiel of how, how Kevin Feige name-dropped him, kind of didn't commit, but, made a insinuation that he might be coming, anywhere from 5, 10, 15 years. So it's nothing we haven't heard before, but it's good to see that Moon Knight is still mixing it amongst the rumour mill. There are a couple of really good ones here, Chad, as well. If we just quickly go through from the top, obviously Spider-Man, that's confirmed. He'll be. What do you think of Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio?
Well, I'm way up in the air about it because he's kind of a presence and facial feature type actor. That's what he relies on, and with Mysterio being in a bubble,
yeah, that's true. Unless they massively alter Mysterio's costume, which, it is so iconic having that kind of fishbowl on his head. So it will be... And even if they do show his face in that fishbowl, he'll kind of look like Buzz Lightyear, I reckon.
Well, with Mysterio relying on illusions, I guess he could use the fishbowl to project his face and get all terrifying.
Yeah, true. And, exactly. They could twist it in that sort of way and maybe even it just being a reference to the fishbowl somehow. Who knows? But that was confirmed, wasn't it? Or is it just a really heavy rumour?
It's confirmed.
It is confirmed.
He's going to be in for Homecoming 2.
Okay. And how do you feel about Jake now, unless, of course, he double dips, being off the cards as Moon Knight?
Well, I'm one of the ostracized, and I actually wasn't really wanting Jake to come in as Mooney.
Yeah, look, he's a solid enough, he's a great actor, and he has a physique for it. But yeah, I think there are plenty of options out there, so I'm not too fussed if Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't become Moon Knight. If he did, I think that would be great as well. But if I had the choice between Moon Knight and Mysterio, I reckon there'd be no contest there. Anyway, we also have a rumour for Miss Marvel. Did you hear about this, Chad? They were mentioning, I think Kevin Feige said that there was a big potential that she might be like in the Captain Marvel film.
Yeah, he didn't say exactly what kind of role she was going to be in or if it was a guaranteed in, but he was commenting that, Miss Marvel, or Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, was definitely on the table for getting into the films.
Yeah, it'll be great. She has become such a popular character. Do you collect any of Miss Marvel stuff?
Nope. I'm more of those people again.
No, look, there's nothing wrong. As well, I think it caters towards a type of audience as well, and it's a younger. I think. I'm sure it still entertains and is a good quality read as well. But of course, it's just a different flavour, isn't it? And then doesn't mean that we all have to read it. I don't myself as well, but I hear it's pretty good, and I like the character in general. I just love. That's what I always thought about Mr. Fantastic. I think he's got such a cool power of stretching and all that, but he hardly. I don't know. The focus is more on his intellect, whereas with Miss Marvel, she uses it a lot, and I love seeing that power. There's Black Panther. We have Rumoured, but surely that's gonna be a sequel. And surely they'll... yeah.
On the topic of Black Panther, I've seen a few rumors floating around about a certain Donald Glover.
Yes, I have as well.
Coming in.
Yep. He's a rising star, isn't he? I mean, not that he hasn't been a star before, but I think, his Lando role now in Solo. Have you seen Solo?
Not yet.
Yeah, me too. I haven't seen it yet. So don't worry, Loonies, no spoilers here, because we haven't seen it. But yeah, he's. I heard that as well. He got mentioned. And I can't believe... Oh, I think it has been dropped, hasn't it? That Ryan Coogler... I mean, I thought I'd read it somewhere that Ryan Coogler is confirmed to be the director for the sequel.
I didn't catch that part. All I saw was the mention of Donald Glover coming back as... what's his name? The Prowler?
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, because that was his role back in Homecoming. He just didn't have the tech for it yet. Which was kind of the reference on, hey, anti-gravity boots.
Right.
You want to talk to me about that?
So he was meant to be the Prowler. I know the Prowler's first name is it Hobie? Hobie's I'm not sure. He wasn't actually referenced in Homecoming, was he? Like, Spider-Man didn't actually call him by his name. But
no. All they really mentioned was... God. I'm trying to remember. It was the last name, Morales.
Morales, yeah.
And he talks about, man, I have a nephew in this city. I gotta watch out for him.
Yeah.
And, that's Miles.
Yes. But Miles Morales isn't related to Hobie, though, is he? Is that Hobie Brown, the Prowler? But anyway, I mean, of course I can change things, I guess. But that's exciting. Wow, if he's a Prowler, that's awesome. Yeah. Also, we got confirmed Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think James Gunn has been quite vocal in the fact that there'll be a third one, so no surprises there. Doctor Strange, I'm assuming we'll get a sequel. Did you enjoy the film?
The Doctor Strange film?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be completely honest, the first time I saw it, I was a little inebriated. And it really worked into the trippy physics and anti-everything.
Did you watch it 3D?
I did not, unfortunately.
Okay, I thought that would have been even more trippy for you. Oh,
yeah. That definitely would have enhanced it.
Have you seen Infinity War as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what a lot of people say as well. I really loved Doctor Strange in Infinity War. I think he was great because you really got to see a cachet of all his powers. I enjoyed Doctor Strange the movie, and every now and again I like to put it on and watch it as well. But what I found there was that it seemed that he could only do the portal and the shields and stuff, and the whip, and of course he had the time Eye of Agamotto. But I don't know, his powers seemed very limited there. And granted, he was just starting out. But in Infinity War, it seemed like he was really the Sorcerer Supreme. And I loved how he did all that stuff. The multiple, illusions and all that. I thought that was pretty good. But, sorry, Chad, do you think, obviously, do you reckon there'll be a sequel for this?
For which?
For Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I believe they were talking about getting Nightmare in as the villain.
Oh, he would be good, and hopefully he'd... Look, Mads Mikkelsen was really good, but his character, I felt, was really underdone. If they do Nightmare, I hope they do something along the levels of like Hela from Ragnarok. She was a kick-ass villain, and you could really do crazy stuff with Nightmare. So, yeah, Chad, what do we have for 15?
We got the confirmed Black Widow solo story. And let's see. I mean, that could play a lot of different roles. I mean, when it comes to either the Red Room and her correlation with Bucky, she makes open references, and they never really connected the dots there.
No,
in the MCU,
they left a lot of little breadcrumbs there, didn't they? I loved also her relationship with Hawkeye as well. That could be obviously explored, which is really good. And actually coming out a bit later, it probably works in their favour because of, was that Jennifer Lawrence film, Red Sparrow, was it?
Yeah.
It seemed very kind of Black Widow-esque. So, but I'd love to see a Black Widow film. Are you a fan of hers?
Yeah, I'm pretty into the Black Widow and generalized everything kind of over on the Soviet side because I love intrigue.
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
spy films, all the high-tech gadgets.
Yeah.
And all the MK Ultra interesting tidbits.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of touched upon that in Winter Soldier. Like, just the kind of that mood, I think, in the film. But they could do so much more, I think, with Black Widow. It'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 14, we have Captain Marvel. And they say rumoured here, but she is getting her own film for next year. And apparently she does play a role in Avengers 4. So she's very much entrenched, I think, in Phase 4.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Brie Larson as Captain Marvel?
Well, I'm torn because primarily Brie Larson does a lot of, straight intrigue and, not a lot of action. And
yeah,
she's very action oriented in the comics.
Well, this could be, a genesis for Brie. Maybe she could end up being a really awesome action star, which would be really cool. I think she'll do well as Captain Marvel. I think, exactly as you say, her background as an actor will kind of lend itself to giving her that kind of gravitas I think that Captain Marvel needs. And she's pegged to be the saviour, basically, I think, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe against Thanos. So I just can't wait to see her. She's meant to be the most powerful, isn't she? Like, more powerful than Thor?
Well, kind of. It's kind of... So, she has this kind of passive thing. It's like an empty reservoir of power, and when it gets filled up, she has this kind of this freak out, and she turns into this kind of Dark Phoenix-y character called Binary.
Yes. Yep.
And Binary is ridiculously overpowered.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see that in the Captain Marvel film, or maybe touch upon it?
Oh, I really hope so.
That'd be really cool, isn't it? It's almost akin to, like, Jean Grey getting the Phoenix. I don't know too much about Binary, but all I know is that, like, as Binary, she is way, way, way more powerful than, her Captain Marvel guys. So, exciting stuff there. And I hope they kind of mention that. What do we have next up here, Chad?
Of course, we got Miles Morales.
Oh, hang on.
The other Spider-Man.
Oh, we forgot number 13.
Oh, never mind. Adam Warlock. Sorry.
That's all right. Adam Warlock as well, been and confirmed. Which, look, he was mentioned at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and we actually saw the race that he comes from, and also saw the cocoon. He'll be a very interesting one. I'm surprised he hadn't shown up in Infinity War. What are your thoughts on Adam Warlock? Do you think we'll see him in Avengers 4?
Well, actually, I think that we will see him in Avengers 4, just because he also has another one of those alter egos with Magus.
Yes.
But there was kind of a thing about his appearance, because, like, back when Guardians of the Galaxy first came out, the first one, in the collector's background, everyone saw this giant yellow cocoon, and a lot of people assumed that was going to be Adam Warlock's birthing pod.
That's right, yes.
And as we've found out now, I'll call him Adam at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different look, so...
It is, yeah. They're kind of retconning it, aren't they? or maybe James Gunn regrets having put it as an Easter egg in the first one, because fans want to see him, and he's got an integral part to the cosmic side of Marvel. So
just a little bit.
Yeah. Look, I can't say I'm a fan of Adam Warlock, or I don't hate him, but it'd be great to see him in the MCU. But I'd struggle to find how he kind of fits, unless you go totally the cosmic corner of the realm and within Guardians of the Galaxy. I just can't imagine him kind of slotting in there yet. But he'd have to, surely, because he's got a very close tie to the Infinity Stones. Although Gamora now has taken up the mantle of having that real connection to the Soul Gem, or the Soul Stone. But we'll see. And sorry, Chad, you mentioned, sorry to cut you there, for Miles Morales as number 12.
Yeah, Miles Morales.
Had you read Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man?
I haven't actually caught any of his entire runs or anything. All I know is a lot of the background story, and I'm looking forward to the Into the Spider. Huh? What was that?
Sorry, what story was that?
I was just saying his background story.
Oh, background.
His origin and whatnot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, on this topic, we have the Into the Spider-Verse film coming out soon.
Oh.
And that's starring Miles Morales.
Yeah. Wow, that'll be... Oh, that's the animated film, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Miles Morales, again, I think similar to Kamala Khan, is quite popular, and I think Bendis is one of Bendis's, good creations and stories. A really fun character. I only picked up a few issues here and there. He's very cool. Definitely like to still see him actually on the big screen. So we'll just have to see how. It all based. I guess it will depend on the success of Spider-Man: Homecoming, whatever the sequel, and also the Venom movie coming out as well. I'm actually looking forward to that. Are you a big Venom fan as well?
Yeah, I'm really into Venom, actually.
Yeah, I'd imagine. For some reason, I don't know, I thought I would have pegged you as a Venom fan, Chad. I love the whole symbiote thing, or symbiote, as they call it in the film. I don't know, to me it's similar to Spawn in that sense. There's a symbiotic relationship. But Venom was just, I remember reading that in the 90s, and he's awesome. So if that goes well, we might see a whole slew of Spider films, not only animated but live action. For number 11, I think this is pretty cool. The Eternals has been confirmed, and I'm not sure if you read the Avengers back in the day there, Chad, but Cersei, she was fantastic as one of the Avengers members. And Icarus is another cool one. I think you see on the article, you see both of them. I think that's Cersei, the two figures on the left. Other than that, I'm not too sure about the Eternals. I don't know where they, I don't know their origin and such, but they could well be replacements for the Inhumans on the big screen. Chad, what do you reckon?
I'm crossing my fingers. I don't know much about the Eternals, but if they're going to be cosmic heroes, it would be nice to get some kind of solid backbone up there.
Yeah. Guardians has really laid the platform, and I feel Infinity War has done, has gone leaps and bounds for the Marvel Cosmic Corner, which is really, really good to see. The Eternals will take it up a notch as well. They're really superpowered, really good. And really fun characters, but not entirely well known. Number 10 we have Moon Knight, as we discussed, and who do we have at number 9, Chad?
Ironically enough, Mysterio. Confirmed.
And confirmed as well. So I don't know why I asked you, Chad, if it was confirmed or not. It was in this article, but I must have forgotten. Yes, so Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Take it as you will. The the next one, Rumoured, and again, this was something that Feige kind of off the cuff, kind of mentioned in an interview. We have Nova, and he'll be, if we're talking cosmic stuff, Chad, Nova would be fantastic. Already kind of referenced in the Guardians with the Nova Corps at Xandar. But whether or not we get Richard Rider or Sam Alexander, we'll just have to wait and see. Fingers crossed that we get Nova at all. Have you been reading Nova, or are you a big fan?
Pretty much I've only really caught Nova when he's entered into other stories.
Yeah.
I haven't read the, actual continuation or anything.
Right.
But based off of what I know about them, I think I'd prefer to get Richard Rider.
Richard Rider seems to have, there's a bit of tragedy there with him as well. It seems to have a little bit more depth, I guess, only in the sense that I guess he's been around a bit longer. But I was familiar with Nova only through the New Warriors. I used to collect the Mark Bagley, I think Fabian Nicieza run in the 90s, and Nova, Richard Rider was part of that. Really cool power set. The whole backstory of being literally kind of like the Green Lantern Corps, right? Like the peacekeepers of the galaxy. It'll be a lot of fun to see. And let's just go through these. We're heading up towards one. Who have we got next here, Chad?
We have MJ.
Mm-hmm. And I think no surprises here. I mean, she just revealed herself at Homecoming. I mean, surely you'd think that she'd get more screen time in the sequel. And she's played by... What's her name? Is it Zendaya?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, she's isn't she like, she's an upcoming star, isn't she? I don't know. I've lost touch with this younger generation, Chad.
Well, you're making a new one, so...
That's true. That's true. And anyway, if we go to number 6, this is a cool one. Rumoured, I wish it was confirmed. Blade, and we have Wesley Snipes knocking on the door, wanting to be involved in some capacity. He was a cool Blade back in the day. I'd love to see Blade back. I mean, there's been a long enough break from vampires, I think. I think we need to bring him back. What do you reckon, Chad?
Well, I mean, funny you should be talking about vampires coming back. One of the Sony films coming out in the future is going to be Morbius.
Oh, really?
And, well, not confirmed, but they've been doing heavy talks about it.
Oh, fantastic.
And, they're doing a whole, darker side for the Sony films. So, fingers crossed. But on the topic of Blade, Snipes was the Blade I grew up with, even though, he's actually British and dresses a tad different.
Yeah.
But I would really like to see a Blade come back, whether it's him or his daughter or anything.
Yes.
I'm kind of into...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I was about to say, that fizzled out, didn't it? I was looking forward to that comic series. They mentioned it ages ago of, Blade's daughter taking up the mantle and Blade kind of, I guess, training her and all that. I read an article, I think it was from the writer or something, and he explained the whole thing, how it kind of just basically died in the arse. But, it was a real shame because Blade has been popping up, in Damnation, in Spirits of Vengeance, which was a limited run earlier this year. So he just needs to be exposed a bit more, I think, and a movie would be great, or like a Netflix show. I reckon that would work. Yeah,
just a few episodes at a time.
Yeah,
just kind of filling in where the MCU just kind of leaves stuff in the dark, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. And, okay, so we're coming down to our final 5 here. We got confirmed Aunt May, and again, no surprises there. Look, she was one of the main support casts of Homecoming, so she's going. Number 4, Chad, this is a big one. I'd like to see this. What do we have at number 4?
She-Hulk.
Yeah! I reckon this would be great. I don't know. Jury's out yet. I don't know whether a movie or a TV series would do well. I tend to want to see her turn up in the movies. What do you reckon?
I would rather see her in the movies. I can already see a very troubled Banner, kind of stuck. Does he help? His cousin get his blood transfusion, knowing the problems that arise.
Yeah.
Just that kind of pensive moment. Maybe he's sweating about. Maybe we don't need another Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. And I think her character's a lot more malleable than, say, Bruce Banner's, and we've seen the Hulk tested in the past with standalone movies, and unfortunately they don't seem to carry as well as some other comic book films. But with Jennifer Walters, and the fact that she kind of retains her smarts and that she's a lawyer as well, and that there's a bit of a quirky side to it, I reckon it can really work. So I reckon she's got a better shot at it than, say, the Hulk films. I did like Ed Norton as the Hulk, and I enjoyed to an extent Ang Lee's one, but they were both flawed films. So it would be good to see a Hulk done right on the big screen. So top 3 confirmed. We have the Vulture. He was just, he was just fantastic. I think he was one of the standouts for Homecoming. So again, you'd want to be throwing some money at Michael Keaton to reprise his role. And I'll leave the last 2 to you, Chad, because these are cool.
Well, we got Captain Britain, which I know will appeal to a certain loony.
Yes, he's pretty cool. And does it say here? Because Orlando Bloom actually put his hand up, and he actually wants to give it a go. He'd have to bulk up big time, I think, unless, of course, they reimagine the character. But I'd love to see Captain Britain on there. I love the connection to Merlin and that English mythology. And the fact that his powers are based on confidence. I reckon that'd be really cool. And he's got a tie also. Oh, I was about to say cosmic, Chad, but I think it's more mystical.
Well, usually when it comes to the stuff that was going on with Excalibur, it's a lot more mystical.
Yes.
But that goes along with, the demographic is primarily catering towards the mystical aspects of, the history of Britain.
Yeah.
And, supposed to be the uniting force of the world. And
yes. Yeah, true.
Hence why there was one of the sanctums for Doctor Strange over in London.
Yes.
Which
makes sense, yeah. And then finally, Chad, we have number 1, Rumoured. That's a bit strange.
Very strange. We got Bucky, the Winter Soldier.
Yes, very popular character. Sebastian Stan's really kind of coming into his own, I think, with this, and I think it's thanks a lot to the movies that the Winter Soldier and Bucky has risen in profile in the comics.
Well, between the movies and, he has a long history as both hero, villain.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge Bucky supporter.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that they're marking him up as Rumoured is kind of...
I know, it's weird.
Well... They have 3 more movies that he's been signed on to, and they just have yet to announce them.
Well, so that's pretty silly. So we know that it's confirmed he's part of 3, unless, of course, he tears up his contract. But, and there's speculation either him or Sam Wilson may take up the shield of Captain America, which is an exciting thing. But in his own right, as Winter Soldier, he was like the Terminator. He was great in the Winter Soldier movie, Captain America 2. Very deadly. If he's on your side, you've got a good soldier there. And it's great to hear as well, Shuri, kind of cured him of his, what do you call it, being triggered by that book. So
it was the I'm trying to remember the special program it was that they called it, but it was basically just MK Ultra
Yeah.
Soviet technology just kind of implementing layers of
Yes.
false memories to being
Yes.
a soldier for him.
Yeah, that's a trivia question right there, loonies. So, what was that program called? I've got no chance. I thought it was Leviathan, but I think that's from Agent Carter, which I don't know. Anywho, though, that was the news there, loonies. Very small on Moon Knight, but it was fun to actually go through these rumours, I think, and to see what's coming up ahead in the MCU. So, Connor, I think... not Connor. Oh my gosh, it's just rolled off the tongue. Chad, the power of Chad. I think it's time to go over the moon. Yes, we are over the moon here. You are with your High Priest Priest Rey and the power of Chad, our loony co-host. And we are looking at our classic run and our modern run as spoken of at the beginning of the show. And the first one that we'll look at is our classic run. And I've got a bare bones for this, so I'll do a live reading. Why not? And it is for the Hulk magazine, Volume 1, Issue 15. These were the backup stories. Actually, and before we go into that, Chad, I believe you read the whole issue, the Hulk issue as well.
All of it.
Yeah, that's cool. So Looney's just letting you know that Chad has done more homework than I have, so well done, Chad. Just before we get into the Moon Knight backup story, how did you find the first story? Give us a summary of what happened in the Hulk story, just out of interest.
Well, it basically starts out with Bruce Banner trekking out into the middle of the desert where he stashed a bunch of tech. He's trying to cure himself of being the Hulk, and partway through the entire procedure, he hulks out and destroys the tech in a fit of rage. And, typical Hulk, puny Banner tried to kill Hulk. This is last time. And then he promptly destroys Banner's car, and then kind of chuckles at, now Banner has to walk. And from there, he basically jumps off into the distance, assuring that even more so, he'd have to walk even farther. And lands in a military complex where they're doing a kind of cybernetic... what's the right term? Well, I was comparing it earlier to being the Jaeger program from Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
And basically, they experiment on neurons firing the brain, different parts of the body, and, it's three guys trussed up in suspension tanks, and they're controlling three very viable cybernetic humanoids. They're bipeds, shaped like a human, but, they got all sorts of crazy enhancements to strength, and they can fire electricity, and all these assorted things. And starts with, just the higher-ups patting each other on the back. Oh, well done. And then it boils down to, all of a sudden the Hulk's there, trashing the place. And it's not like he was even there on purpose. He just landed there.
With jumping away.
And so basically he starts getting into this fight with one guy after trying to escape the entire complex. Fights this seemingly well-to-do guy. It's just that, bad timing. And one of the drawbacks of being in this suit is the fact that it will actually harm you based off of the Hulk harming the cybernetic suit. So as the Hulk just lays into this guy, he's like getting crippled up in the tank, and he is like wincing and falling to his knees. Like, oh, so the Hulk's just gonna do this now. But the Hulk is stopped in time. He's not too badly, destroyed or anything.
Yeah.
But, he runs off into the desert once again. The Hulk.
There you go. It sounds like a fun read. I'm just, as you were describing it, I'm just flicking through the images here, and it looks pretty fun. It's a sizable story. It's about 40 pages. So it's greater than your, I don't know, I guess it would be classed as an annual or something these days. But yeah, substantial story there, and you got Hulk battling, what kind of like the army military thing. So apart from the robots as well, so all the classic traits of the Hulk here, and this was also written by Doug Munch. So it shows a different side of Doug. But we are going to look at the backup stories, which are actually in like two main parts. And so the title is an Eclipse Waning / an Eclipse Waxing. And it was released in June 1979. Writer Doug Munch, Bill Sienkiewicz and Bob McLeod were the artists. Colours Steve Oliff, and letterers Jim Owsley, Ed Norton, Peter Ledger. I think they did the whole magazine. And editor Rick Marshall. So here's a bare bones. Stephen Grant intends to head out of New York to get away from the Big Apple and visit his friend Jason, a wealthy astronomer who lives out of the city on an elegant estate. As Grant brings the wine and greets Jason, the astronomer is keen to observe a total eclipse which will occur that night along with all its components: the first contact, initial partial phase, second contact, the totality, third contact, concluding partial phase, and finally the fourth contact. Grant spots 3 intruders trespassing on Jason's estate, and as Jason prepares for the total eclipse ahead, Grant excuses himself and heads outside, intent on transforming into Moon Knight in order to confront and dispatch the eager criminals. As the moon slowly becomes engulfed in darkness, and conscious of his waning moon strength, Moon Knight presses forward, hoping to catch up with the no-good evildoers. He comes across one of them, but is startled to find that the man himself is petrified, running from something he describes as a monster. Moon Knight trips him up with a truncheon and incapacitates him, ensuring that he no longer poses a threat to Jason and his estate. As the moon now becomes fully enveloped in darkness, and with his strength now reverted back to normal, Moon Knight suddenly comes across a silhouette of remarkable strength. Moon Knight is brushed aside by this unknown being and is momentarily stunned by the force which hits him. When he recovers, he stumbles upon a freshly torn tree, the huge trunk seemingly snapped like a twig. Unbeknownst to Moon Knight, the other 2 trespassers lay at his feet in a ditch, and Moon Knight proceeds to call the cops for them to pick up the lone criminal whom he was able to apprehend. Grant returns to Jason, who reproaches Grant for having missed the whole eclipse, which Jason had worked so hard to observe for that evening. The story is then told again from another perspective, this time from Dr. Bruce Banner. Banner is strolling in the countryside, having left New York as a precaution. Banner's transformations into the Hulk are unpredictable, and he's not taking any chances with the upcoming eclipse. Superstition or not, Banner is not taking any chances, as he's fully aware of what the Hulk is capable of. As he wanders through the woods, he stumbles across 3 men who are looking to do no good. They discuss potentially robbing a man at his mansion, but are startled when they hear Banner accidentally snap a branch off a nearby tree. They give chase to the fleeing Banner and catch up to him, but do not realise the situation has stimulated the adrenaline in Banner's unique physiology. Before their eyes, he turns into the Incredible Hulk, and in his rage he snaps a tree in 2 without any effort. He grabs 2 of the thugs and knocks them both unconscious without even breaking a sweat. The 3rd man escapes, and as the Hulk gives chase, the eclipse blackens to night, and it's not long before the Hulk loses his target. As he prods into the darkness, he comes across a spectre in the night. It's Moon Knight, whom we've seen before, traversing the landscape. And not knowing who or what it is, the Hulk swats it away like a fly. The moon at this time slowly comes back from the darkness which the Eclipse had previously cloaked it with, and the Hulk is left pondering the actions of the moon as Moon Knight, aka Stephen Grant, returns to Jason, who reproaches him for having missed the whole eclipse. Yes, Looney, so that was the synopsis for this backup story to the Hulk magazine, issue 15. Chad, overall impressions, what did you think? What did you make of this backup story?
Like you were talking about before the show, it's a very Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And I liked it. It was a different approach. And I'm pretty... not exactly keen on how they depicted Moon Knight because, he just had this burst of power only at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of petered off. And we didn't really get to see him actually enhanced. He just kind of chased him and then, just got swatted.
Yeah. It was almost as if, it's funny because he kept on mentioning about how the moon was tied to his strength. But he didn't do anything with it. And then by the time he actually got to the criminals, it was the Eclipse. So he didn't have his moon strength at all. So I felt, similar to you, kind of a little short-changed at that. But, I enjoyed it as well. Like you said, I thought it was a very innovative way of telling the story. Back in 1979, I can only imagine it would have been a very cool way to tell it from two distinct perspectives, but telling the one story. As you're saying, very Tarantino-esque. A very self-contained story. So this was a nice little one-shot. Enjoyable nevertheless. Not too much at stake here. I think only the tree was the victim. The criminals were just knocked unconscious. And they were just nothing criminals, weren't they? They were just three goons walking through the woods wanting to rob, Jason. So, yeah. So anyway, as listeners know, or if you are listening for the first time, after we talk about the synopsis, we'll go into our four main aspects. So the first one I put down, Chad, as I think that the Eclipse was one of the main subjects of this story. It played a role in various things, but it was good to get a bit of an educational lesson from Jason about the steps of the eclipse. Have you witnessed a total eclipse before?
Yeah. Let's see. I think it was about 4 years ago, roughly. I'm terrible at time. But, I was out camping at Fort Worden with my wife's family.
Okay.
And, just went out to the bunkers and checked it out. It was real. You could actually feel the warmth.
Oh, right.
During the eclipse, and that was interesting.
Oh, that's good. Did you feel your strength waning or waxing, or whatever? Did you find a distinct degradation of your strength?
Not just my eyesight.
True. Well, you could have had Moon Knight right in front of you. You never know. You wouldn't even know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how dark did it get. Was it like?
Well, it's out in the middle of the woods, and it's camping, like I said, and it's already pretty dark. So any light at all turns out to be a lot more than you'd really need. Yeah,
okay. Because I'm just thinking of I remember going caving, and when you go deep into a cave and there's absolutely no light at all, it is literally just pitch black. Like you could wave your hand in front of your face and not even see it at all. I'm just wondering if it reached that level of absolute darkness in the woods as well. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of incidental light, I guess, somewhere. But if the moon is totally blocked out, I'm assuming then that it's all dark. Anyway, That's just me. So we find the total eclipse is it plays a big role. Not only does it motivate Stephen Grant to go visit Jason up at his estate, because Jason, being an astronomer, is into this sort of thing. So this is the trigger that actually starts the thing. The story. Not only that, but the eclipse affects Moon Knight. As we mentioned, his strength is affected by the moon. But not only that as well, we also find, you could argue as well, the three criminals have taken advantage of the eclipse to sneak up on the estate as well. And then you also have the confrontation between the Hulk and Moon Knight when it is a total eclipse. So the Hulk not being able to recognize what was in front of him. Similarly, Moon Knight not knowing that it was the Incredible Hulk in front of him. And for a brief moment, they cross paths, and understandably, Moon Knight comes out second best. The eclipse plays a big part in this, and I like the way that Munch has incorporated this into the story and incorporated it into Moon Knight. And that kind of leads into what we mentioned before as well, but the second aspect of Munch's inventive storytelling. So, for those that don't know, Chad, maybe could you explain, when we say something's very Tarantino-esque, what are we kind of getting at?
Well, it starts out with one part of a story, and it explains a little bit of what's going on, and then it basically cuts back in time, or forward, depending on, what film or show, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it basically explains it from another perspective, getting to that same point. Mm. And it's a great way to show more of that story and the situation without having to just do one character's drawn-out point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell... Yeah, exactly. You can tell more of the story. You can create more empathy for characters. If we were to just read the first part of this story, it would just be left at Moon Knight just being hit by something, and couldn't care less what it is. It could be a bear or something. But we actually find out that, and it, to me also, Chad, it's kind of like the MCU in a way as well. It's kind of like if you view it like a is it a macro universe, in the fact that you do get that same satisfaction where you relate to something because you've seen it before, like in the story before. You relate to it in the second story, and it kind of ties up. So similar to how, like, the MCU movies, they kind of overlap, and not necessarily a same storyline, but the fact that you do get references to things that you have formed an attachment to in another story, if that makes sense. But yeah. So very cool by Munch's storytelling, as well as we mentioned, his use of the eclipse. I thought though the use of the Hulk was a little wasted in the fact. I mean, we get the reasoning that Banner's moving away from the city because he knows that the eclipse is going to start, and this is another reason for the eclipse being part of the story. He knows the eclipse is going to commence, and he's a little superstitious. He doesn't know what's going to happen, whether he'll transform into the Hulk or not. So his idea is to get away from New York, so he'll minimize the damage. But yeah, I found it a little thin as to... I found it like maybe Munch was really just trying to clutch at straws here, as to try and get Moon Knight and the Hulk to cross paths. What do you reckon?
Well, it's kind of going off of the whole, superstition with, the Hulk. Mm. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird for Banner, of all people, to be superstitious.
Yeah. That's it.
But at the same time, hard to tell with the Hulk.
Yeah. I think it's very much the editor saying, look, we've had some success with Moon Knight with his previous appearances in the Hulk magazine. let's get them to cross paths. And Doug, over to you. And he's come up with a story. Because this could have well been, I was about to say Jack Russell, like another werewolf story, which would have been pretty cool. But I don't know how a werewolf will react or transform in an eclipse. But it just seemed a bit odd that it's the Hulk. And then to have the Hulk trundling through the woods and really the amount of power that this being has just comes across, just normal people, and he just breaks a tree. It just seemed very, kind of very forced to me, but still an enjoyable read. That will lead, I guess, into our third aspect, which is we get, again, more of a sense that Moon Knight is part of the Marvel Universe, which is really good. Up until this point, his backup stories, which we've covered previously, were very standalone stories. There were no real connections to any other Marvel characters. His enemies and villains, and they were all kind of just street-level criminals. So this is the first time that we actually see Moon Knight with the Hulk. I say that, though I'm thinking, Chad, we did cover the Defenders, where Moon Knight joined kind of the group. So,
yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I say there is totally true. But he has been isolated for a while, let's just say that. So we get him again, some incidental connection to the Marvel Universe, and it's through the Incredible Hulk, which, no surprises, it's in the Hulk magazine. So that was the third point, and the last one, I guess, would be Sienkiewicz's art. Chad, now, are you a fan of Sienkiewicz's? I'm sure you are.
I am. I like his modern stuff more than his old, bits.
Oh yeah,
I think that's
I know,
more of a printing thing.
yeah, I know what you mean. It's a very distinct style, very cool. But I don't know. I like his classic stuff as well. Like I'm looking at I think it's page 42 of the digital copy, and you get very I don't want to say standard, but his facial, like the art of when he draws Stephen Grant's face, it's just it's very thing of its time, isn't it? But very well accomplished. Even he's got the three faces of the criminals. This is on page 44 as Moon Knight kind of is going through the woods. Very well detailed. So even early on, as a young artist, is very well gifted.
Yeah. I think that the musculature on some of these guys is kind of skewed.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah.
good at the same time. Like, it's very comical in its own way. Like, that guy's jaw drooping is just unreal amounts.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's like his face is stretched. But again, we see a lot of... I love how Sienkiewicz uses Moon Knight's cape to give the illusion of the moon many times. You see it either as a crescent or when he's kind of floating on his moon glider cape. It kind of, forms that crescent, which is pretty cool. And, the colours are okay. The colour, for much of it, it's very bland, but again, they're facing an eclipse, so there's not much colour needed. It's pretty good. And obviously the green, actually a lot more colour with the Hulk, the second part. And actually, I do like Bill's rendition of the Hulk. If you look at page 54, where the guy tries to stab the Hulk, I like the Hulk's facial features there. It's very cool. But he's just too strong. When he clobbers the two guys together, I was half inclined to think that both of their heads would have been smashed in. I mean, it's maybe he'd have to just give it a love tap. I don't know.
I was kind of thinking about that. It's like he picks these guys up.
Yeah.
And it seems like he just breaks them on each other's back. It's like...
Yeah.
What the hell?
It's pretty violent, isn't it? And I'm surprised there's no blood shown. And then he just tosses them away like...
Yeah, it's really violent. I mean...
Yeah.
Usually the Hulk just kind of like swats people, like Moon Knight.
Swats them, or...
But instead, he just kind of wrecks their entire skeleton on the other guy's skeleton.
They could really be cripples for life or something, I don't know. Because you'd think that he'd just like flick them with his finger or something because he's so superpowered. But Bill Sienkiewicz here, I guess he wanted to show a little bit of violence, even swatting Moon Knight. I mean, maybe he's a skilled fighter, so maybe he rolled with the punch, as you hear a lot of early comics say. You know, if I hadn't rolled with the punch, I would have been a dead man. Maybe he's done that. But we're talking about the Hulk here. We're not talking about, just some big thug. Look, there was just a couple of notes here. I put down to earth. It was a very down to earth, nothing spectacular. It was a very simple story. I'm thinking if it was filmed as an episode or something, it would be very simple to do. You just need an interior of Jason's place, and then you just got to find some wood somewhere, and just have 3 guys roaming around. That was basically it. So it was very down to earth tale again. Apart from the odd inclusion, as we mentioned before, of the Hulk. That was it there. Chad, you also mentioned a note about Marlene.
Yeah, once again, it was like at the beginning of, what's his face? It was at the beginning of the entire story, and there was commentary made. Hey, Marlene's gonna go off and do something. I guess she's gonna live her life.
Oh, that's right.
And then makes a comment about if I ever find him ... Like,
I killed the guy. Yeah, right. There's a bit.
It's like premeditated murder. Is that what's going on?
Well, in the least, it's showing a little bitterness, isn't it? So things haven't gone well with both of them, and his mindset is obviously he's a little pissed off at Marlene, and I'm assuming she's pissed off at him, and so she's seeing other people, which they're not, it happens. It seems to happen. We saw with the Rick Ball special in his Isla Ra comics, which was Moon Knight issue 13, I believe. She was going out with a gentleman called Taylor, so very much an on-again, off-again relationship with Mark Spector, which is actually one of the cool things I like about their relationship. Although, having said that, you have Mary Jane now and Peter Parker kind of... Well, they're largely off now, aren't they?
I believe so.
Yeah. But the thing with Marlene and Mark I really like is they seem to fluctuate so frequently, so constantly. It's a really different dynamic between the two. So, a nice, simple story for our classic run. It was self-contained, found in the one issue at the back of the Hulk. Chad mentioned a pretty ripping story at the beginning with the Hulk, and very Pacific Rim-esque story, and him and the military again. If we got to go to our Crescent Dart ratings for this, Chad, just for the let's just do it just for the Moon Knight story. What would you give this out of 5 Crescent Darts?
I'm gonna be a jerk here and just say 2.5 ruined, henchmen.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, no, I totally can see where you're coming from. Why would you give it, say, 2.5 then?
Well, it's just, as much as I like the story style, like you said, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a random happenstance out in the woods. There isn't exactly a lot of, story-driven plot here. It's just kind of there. Congratulations, have a battle royale.
Yeah.
And pretty much the only saving factor was the unique, storytelling and Sienkiewicz's art.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
I would have to agree with you. I think the standout for this would be Munch's structure to the story and how he told it. But I also did like his use of the eclipse, and I think, as I mentioned a bit earlier, how the eclipse meant so much for different factors of the story. But overall, I totally agree with you, Chad. It was a little bland. It was a nothing story. It was actually a pretty perfect backup story. There was nothing at stake. It included the main protagonist of the magazine, which was the Hulk, and it really didn't do much. So I give it 3. I'd say 3 partial phases out of 5. And look, as I said, it was enjoyable, but nothing really to write home about. So there you go, Loonies. That's 5.5, which gives us 2.75 as an average Crescent Darts for this one. So if you can come across it, check it out if you want. If you want to know a little bit about the Eclipse, and if you want to see Hulk smash some skeletons, then it's right up your alley.
Hi, this is Dave.
And I'm Stu, and we're from the Signal of Doom.
We're proud members of the Collective, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Okay, Loonies, so we are up to our modern run now of Moon Knight by Charlie Huston, and I will throw it to Chad to give us the bare bones for this issue.
Alright, this is Moon Knight, The Bottom, Chapter 6. Writer is Charlie Huston, penciler is David Finch, inker Danny Leakey with Crime Studios, colorist Frank D'Armata, the letterer is VC's Joe Caramagna, production by Paul Serios, editor is Axel Alonso, and the publisher is Dan Buckley. We find the remaining committee members fleeing for their lives. Their only defense is Taskmaster, who upon recovery levels a crossbow at our hero, the Moon's Knight. The mercenary, has a sharper precision than most, demonstrates it with a shot to Moon Knight's chest that should sever connecting tissues to that muscle group. I can beat you. I'm better than you. I'm so much better than you, you can't win. You have to die. Taskmaster unsheathes his long blade and drops the point straight at our Avenger's right eye. Yes, kill me. Where they seem to be kneeling in submission, Mark Spector throws open his moonlit cape to reveal he was crouching, waiting for Tony Masters to get closer. Now armed with the spiked cestus, this divine murderer was ready for work. See if that works this time. No violence necessary upon standing. The roles are reversed, and now Taskmaster is prone and disarmed. Leave me alone! Leave me alone! Crescent dart gleaming by the pale moonlight. The criminal underworld has heard enough of the bloody works. And now Tony fears that his face may be the next to be scraped from skull by as a present to the god of vengeance. Make it stop, please. Sweet screams and paralyzed onlookers as bloody white gloves go to work peeling back layers from the adversary. Like a jack-o'-lantern, Moon Knight holds up the prize, while a crying, bloody boy screams under the weight of his reckoning. It is revealed that it is only the iconic skull mask of the hired hand that has been torn from its place. Injured, but far from beaten, Knight takes Rook. as well as the dossiers and information they held about the white-clad Avenger. His revenge delivered, the fist of Khonshu flies into the night. As a pinstriped profile pukes into a gutter as he nears his crappy apartment in the city, Mark Spector lands as if delivered to Marlene from the hands of the moon itself, safely in a grassy park. At Spectre Galleries, we find the namesake cutting off another face, the face of a defeated Avenger. He holds the razor with practiced hand and looks to the mirror, removing rows of feral beard. Trusty Samuels by his side, Mark will do for himself for now. A rehabilitated Mark asked for a certain archaeologist out for lunch, but after several interrupted acknowledgments, no. Mark goes to check on Jean-Paul Duchamp, of course, settling in like a champ. Getting fitted for some new legs. Not much to say about the horror they've been through. Just a little comment on how Mark can help him into the therapy pool, though stone-faced and sour in tone. Swift to work, swift to play. Mark is on the case to discuss fiscal dealings with a broker by the name of Hal Parkinson. One of his last investments was in DNA sequencing in a certain Deus Incorporated, counted as going public with a cheap and quick way of sequencing any DNA. Mark will throw that money straight into criminals once again. Reports on the news circle like sharks around his recent assault on an anonymous building, crashing his mooncopter for dynamic entry. It's been a month and no sign of the night. In the black of an empty television, there's a grim specter of a faceless man, enticing the bloodlust deep in the ex-mercenary. Indeed, when has he not thirsted for it? Samuels interrupts, bringing the strange but endeared Bertrand Crawley into the room, to which he asks about making some tea, knowing Mr. Crawley's penchant for the steamy stuff. Jake apologizes to Crawley for terrible behavior, being an ass. Bertrand casts it off, insisting upon desisting. Confusion. Some, he said, about who sent who. More odd ends drawn from, with no answers. As the sun goes down, a defaced bushmaster creeps out from around the shadow of Khonshu's statue. There to remind Spectre of his best work, no namby-pamby crap, though this last spree was effective in making the highlight reel sorely lacking in blood, spoken from Raoul's sharpened teeth. Ignoring the ghost of sightings past, Mark moves to the tool set. He figured it out. Hammer in hand, he sets upon also removing the statue of Khonshu's face, pointing out the futility in breaking the statue when the problem is in Mark's head. He's reminded about how much the god has done for Mark. 3 deaths, and Khonshu continues to pick up the check. A little diplomacy, and Mark knows he's owned. Mark feeds him beer, and Khonshu delivers blood for Mark to drink. With nightfall, Mark is missing and doing his Lord's work. With the committee's dossier on the profile, he goes to work. Ascending, Mark gets his trajectory and slams through the window, where the profile stands naked with a bottle in hand. Unaware of the impending revenge, the Moon Knight takes his hands and draws them away from covering eyes. With the red neon of the city to illuminate them, Mark intimidates the small man to look at the Avenger and reveal what he sees, to which the man can only panic and cry. Back in the gallery, Mark hosts some event and he is drawn away to Khonshu's bust. How can he live like this? Blood spilled or yet to be spilled? As long as he can reap a full life from it, how could he live any other way? A clock face, viscera on at 125. Two voices on about the closure of some incidental problem. We wouldn't have to live like this after all. A fist juts out into the face of the clock as a corpse sits in disarray on a circle of blood, numbers 1 through 12. Mark isn't the only one who could never live any other way. Next, Midnight Sun.
All right, thank you, Chad, for the bare bones. Yes, a ripping issue here, kind of tying things up, but also kind of leaving a little morsel for us to chew on for the next arc coming up, which is again another exciting arc, but that is for another time. As always, let's start off with first impressions. Chad, what did you find, or how did you find this issue?
I really liked it. I mean, it's kind of my digs. I'm really into horror.
Yes.
And I'm really into the hyper-violence. It's pretty cliche, very American of me. But I also really liked how it concludes the entire arc. The way that it just wraps it up into, once again, Spectre is Khonshu's puppet.
Yes.
Like, that's what's going on here. There's nothing else about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how you dress it up. Like, we can do this the hard way, or we can do it the easy way.
Mm-hmm.
And you just gotta get in line with it, man.
Yeah. It is. It has a very kind of grim ending, doesn't it? If we're not to look at the next arc, which was like an epilogue almost, but yeah, on this, the bottom... Yeah, as you say, very grim. We'll get into that with the four main aspects, but I really enjoyed this. Well, I think it tied up, as you say, very well. Houston sticks the landing on this one, and we still get I get the rest of his other peripheral characters, like the profile is still seen there. We get a tie up of him and Taskmaster. And yeah, again, I think it just shows how driven and how brutal Moon Knight is in this run. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Okay, Chad, I'll ask you, what would be one of your main aspects of this issue?
I think when it comes to the aspects in this one, it's gonna have to rely entirely on Moon Knight, like himself, like the Moon Knight persona. Just the fact that he's been out of commission, and he's just not in good shape. Like, one of the things I cover is he's at the bathroom mirror shaving.
Yeah.
It's like we only ever see Mark with stubble or beard if he's, I don't know, locked up in an asylum and can't handle blades, or if he's been really out. And he has a really long beard here. Like, it's pretty significant. Kind of looks like Wolverine. And he's just not doing so good. And even Frenchie is getting fitted for some new legs.
I did like that actually, though, because it showed some sort of at the end, it was only one page, but it did show some sort of resolution between the two of them, in a sense.
Yeah, it was, just it's no problem, Mark, it's, and, it's just, everyone is not doing so hot here, like, especially Tony Masters.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. Yes. And it's interesting that you pointed that out as well, Chad. And I find almost it's kind of like you see it in the movies as well when someone cleans himself up. So like when Mark does the shaving and he cuts his hair, it's very symbolic of him. Okay, now turning a new leaf and go. Okay, I have decided to go down this direction. And so yeah, as you mentioned, the first thing he does. after he shaves, Samuel asks him, do you want me to drive you today? And he's just staring at the Khonshu statue, and Mark says, no, I'll drive myself. So he's taking the first steps of really taking his destiny and his life in his own hands after being in such a dip, in such a depression that we saw at the beginning of the arc. And, he later visits Marlene as well, and then he visits Frenchie. So he's starting to try and reconnect with his friends, and his important, friend base. I think it was. You did mention Taskmaster, and I wanted to go back to that as well. And yeah, he doesn't fare too well, does he? And this was one of my aspects about Moon Knight returning to the fold as a superhero, and we saw it when he crashed. He crashed the Mooncopter or the Moonjet into the building. He is driven. So this is at the very beginning of the issue, and he's just taking the crossbow hits from Taskmaster. This is a human being, right? Moon Knight is not superpowered, or he's not Luke Cage, and he's beaten up already, and he's taking these arrows to the chest and to the arm, and he's still charging ahead. And he ends up going a little crazy here, and he has a flashback of him and Bushman, and so he takes out one of his crescent darts and he starts carving the face of Taskmaster as well, which totally horrifying for Taskmaster. But thankfully he's got a mask on, so Moon Knight just carves off the mask, but leaves, as you said, Taskmaster in a not so good state at the end.
Yeah, it just kind of blanks out what he's actually done to Taskmaster.
Yes,
he takes the mask off, sure, but it's Taskmaster. He wouldn't just fall over going, "Oh no, stop, please."
Yeah.
It's, he puts these arrows into Moon Knight, and Moon Knight just kind of shrugs it, and that's all we see. So it's like, what exactly did Spectre blank out?
Yes.
Like, what made Taskmaster fall over backwards? Why is he crying?
Yeah. And I would dare say that if Taskmaster didn't have his mask on, I'd say that Moon Knight would be carving his face off, similar to Bushman.
I'm not so sure about that.
No?
I think it's one of the things about Spectre is, he does this thing where at certain points of his time, as Moon Knight, he'll do something horrifying. Just simply, this is an evil thing. What the hell have you done?
Yeah.
And then he'll go ahead and reference it, like he's got the intention to do it, but uses the fact that he's already...
he's done it already.
He's got the horrible, bloody hands on him. He doesn't have to do it.
Okay.
But if he scares you enough, then you get the picture.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, I thought he was just on because you see him just thinking about his glories that he had and stuff. I thought he was just in a trance, and he was almost repeating what he did with Bushman. But very much so. He is a calculated sort of hero. So fantastic art here. I must say, I am a fan of David Finch. I know some people aren't, but I'm sure you're digging it as well.
Oh yeah. And speaking about the art, the cover art on the bottom, part 6, it's I don't know when exactly it happened, but the cover art shows Mark, he's got his fists clenched as Moon Knight, and he's obviously been doing some battle, he's kind of war-torn there. But the thing is, at one point of time, there's all this white remnant all over the suit, and it's not very clear on what it is. It just kind of looks like it got sprayed with glue.
Yeah.
But that's because originally the cover art had all that glue just dark red.
Yeah.
He's covered in viscera.
Yeah.
And they had to edit it.
It was just a little too far. They thought. Yeah, that's still available, the variant cover, and it's kind of well sought after as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But that was very heavy stuff indeed. And so, if we look at, I guess further from what you were saying as well, the grimness of this issue kind of falls into our third aspect. In which case, I put in the notes here, Mark is Khonshu, but as you say, Chad, as well, it's a realization, a forlorn realization that Mark is the puppet of Khonshu. And, no matter how many, no matter how many times he tries to get away from it and the anger he has for it, he smashes the statue with a hammer, because Khonshu explains to him that he was the mastermind behind all of this. He influenced the committee. He put these things in motion. He influenced Bushman for Mark to come to this point, only to kind of realize that, yes, you do serve me. And that obviously angers Mark, because it put his friends and it put himself in danger from Khonshu. You'd be pretty angry too if you've been manipulated like that.
Especially Mark, who, when he has the time to be, he's very prideful of himself.
Yep.
I think it has a lot to do with how much he has to get through just to do anything. Because he has to fight his, mental, instabilities. Mm-hmm. He has to fight everyone, basically calling him another crazy.
Yep.
And any time he can actually do something for himself that isn't, more bloodshed.
Yeah.
That's a win in his book.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. He's been also not only his identities, but also his perception as a superhero in the current society. He was seen as a B-lister, washed up kind of thing. So he's got everything kind of going against him. He's got, even, with Marlene as well, his relationships aren't going too well. So, and then there's that page towards the end where, and that's why I put it as Mark is Khonshu, where the visage of the dead Bushman, he points in a book of Avatar, and he says, in the end, you are me. And the Avatar, the definition is the descent of a god to earth in incarnate form. So, it's kind of very horrific to think for Mark that this is what he is. And he meekly says as well before, I'm not like you, I'm a hero. But it's this kind of revelation that, no, you're very well tied to Khonshu. And this is what you are. This is what you really are. So, very grim. And Chad, if we look at the next page, 21, I love the way that Finch works this in. It's just got Mark huddled against a Khonshu statue in a empty room, and you only get the moonlight coming through, very dark, and there's just the laughing in the background. It's very good.
So, yeah, it's very typical. This is what he usually turns to.
And then
it's
sorry.
It's just kind of depressing.
It is.
It's his staple.
It's not
but he always comes to this room.
Yeah. It's not. He has not a very happy tale. Moon Knight in the Houston run. It's a very, very tragic figure. And you even have him after then. So out of desperation, kind of towards the end, he crashes into the Profile's apartment, and after having heard this thing from Khonshu, he wants to know who he really is, so to speak. So he's trying to force the Profile to look at him, and he says, look at me, tell me what you see, because we know the Profile is a mutant that can actually read people. And so the Profile looks into Moon Knight, and he himself is horrified. So, we delve deeper into the darkness here. Someone that can actually read someone, what he sees, and we don't know what it is. It's just something totally awful. So, very grim.
Yeah, the profiles, like, his eyes are bulging.
Yeah.
The blood vessels are creeping their way along.
Yeah. I mean, he mentioned in earlier issues as well, the supernatural beings, like Moon Knight, are usually harder to read anyway. But you can see here when Moon Knight crashes in, and whether or not it's just because he's shocked at Moon Knight's entrance through the window, but he really does not want to look at Moon Knight or do anything. He is driven by fear, and we get this sense that this is what Moon Knight does to everyone. They are so afraid. So, and I love it how they hang that in the air. Like, you just get that shot of the profile's eye, and he just goes, oh, no, 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 no. You just don't know what he sees, but you can just imagine it's something just unspeakable. It also actually reminds me of when Psylocke had a look at Moon Knight's mind back in the 90s in Mark Spector, and she had a little delve in there, and she came up with horrific things as well, which were kind of more on the nose. They were shown on the nose, but the same sort of thing. Like, his mind is totally messed up. And finally, I guess the last aspect would be that, and drawing Chad more on literally the last page before the epilogue of Midnight, we have Mark embracing his destiny. And if I can just read this out, he said, last couple of pages, so after he meets a profile, we see a shot of Mark flying down, just of his past actions, and he goes, still, someone has to do this. Still, someone has to do the fun stuff. Still, the blade must praise its lord. Still, people want to know, how can I live like this? The blood I've spilt, the blood yet to be spilled. Still, the answer is the same. How could I live any other way? And so, I don't know, I think that's a really nice way to end it for Mark. He was totally against it, but he almost kind of, and imagine the guilt, and it's mentioned in the Bemis run as well, the guilt he has as a mercenary. He's got all this blood on his hands, all this red on his ledger, but he's kind of coming to the terms that this is who he is.
Yeah, and a couple points on that page that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's him in the hall, probably Grant Mansion. Mm-hmm. And, it looks like Marlene is there in the hallway.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, Mark looking at the defaced Khonshu statue again. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, he looks a lot like Frank Castle here.
He does, doesn't he? The middle panel? Oh, the middle and the one on the right, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that middle panel in between the other two. Yeah. That's pretty Punisher Max. Like, that's on the dot.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to the very last panel, the how could I live any other way, it's obviously showing that he is with a female figure,
yes.
And Khonshu promised that he would have everything back as long as he was serving.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that people kind of forget about. It's like, yeah, he's, this dark passenger in Dexter's terms, but at the same time, he's a god.
Yeah.
He can deliver things that he promises. You just have to do the legwork.
Yeah, yeah. You have to make some sacrifices. And,
yeah,
I think, very well picked up there, Chad, as well. It's right. So it's an acceptance of his destiny, but it's almost as if he's kind of giving in to it as well, rather than just accepting it, because he does get some stuff from Khonshu. Like he's reunited with Marlene, and we can only assume his relationship with Frenchie is a lot better as well. But it comes at a price, and that's what's kind of tearing him apart. Because again, as I mentioned, like in the Bemis run, Mark Spector is a mercenary. Okay, so he's a fighter, but he is someone that would kill only, if he has to. He's really trying to limit it. And it's Jake later on, the taxi driver, that's a bit more of the loose cannon. So there's a lot of conflict within Mark's mind here. And yeah, a really good way to end it. And then there's a little bit at the end there, Chad, of midnight. Sets up for the next one. But we'll, that's for another time, I guess. So having gone through that, let's just have a look at any notes. I think we've mentioned that all anyway. Mark cutting off Taskmaster's face. Mark and Frenchie buddies again. And what does the profile see? So yeah, they were little points there. I'll ask you again, Chad. Cresdart ratings. What would you give this little baby?
I would give it a very solid 4.
Yeah, cool. 4 hammers, 4 razor blades.
I think I'm gonna mark it up as, razor blades is good.
4 razor blades. Okay, 4 out of 5. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I guess from what you mentioned before, this is right in your wheelhouse. This sort of horror, ultra-violence, the art. These were the things that you liked about it most, yeah?
That, and, just, it's a perfect summary. It's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's just right there. It's on the dot. This is what we needed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'd give it 4.5 as well. I really did enjoy this, and as we mentioned, it's a really good way to end the first arc. It kind of wrapped things up. The real thing that hit home for me was, his relationship with Khonshu at the end, which was really heavy to actually absorb when you read it. But also how tough Moon Knight was, like at the beginning with Taskmaster and just battling through. I think that was really, really cool. So 4.5, 4.5 arrows to the chest there. Yeah, very tough. And so that would give us 8.5, 4.25 as an average there. So my maths is getting better. So those are our those were the 2 runs that we had for this episode. Definitely check out this Houston run. We seem to always recommend it to any loonies or any readers who are keen to dive into Moon Knight. The first 6 issues would really give you a taste of a darker Moon Knight, but some would say is their favourite depiction of Moon Knight. Available on Comixology, Marvel Unlimited. Also, you can still get the floppies, and it's available in trade as well, both in paperback and hardcover. So a little harder to find, but if you do, I'm sure you can find it. All right, well, that pretty much wraps us up for this show, Chad. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Do you want to read us out the next phase, actually, our next episode? We'll be looking at 2 other books.
Looks like we're going to be doing the Marvel 2-in-1, Volume 1, number 52, and Moon Knight, Volume 7, number 1.
Yes, so Loonies, this was... I put this out to the Loonies out there in the Facebook group. Which next modern run do you want to tackle? And it's issue 7, Volume 7, which is the Warren Ellis run. So very excited to look at those 6 issues by Warren Ellis. That should be a cracker. As always, you can find us on any good podcast catcher. And we have various social platforms which you can drop a line, say hello, share your thoughts. We've got email at itkmoonnight@gmail.com. We're at Facebook at facebook.com/itkmoonnight. We have a Facebook group, fantastic group of loonies there at facebook.com/group/itkmoonnight. Our Twitter handle is at itkmoonnight, and our blog site is intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. So that will have all our show notes and all our episode summaries and bare bones there for your reading pleasure. So, like I said, it's been a blast. Thank you once again, Chad. Have you got, what's, just before we go, what's on your reading list to come up now, today or tomorrow?
My reading list right now is primarily Shadow Man.
Oh, yeah!
Going all the way back.
You have hit gold there. You going all the way back? Beyond the current Valiant VEI?
Yeah, it's the old school
awesome
stuff.
You got to let me know how it goes. I really do dig Shadow Man at the moment. Are you reading the regular run, like the current run?
I was just going to go ahead and start at the beginning and work my way forward.
Okay. It's really cool. Some people think it's a little average, but I really like it. Yeah. Oh, cool. Interested to know how you what you think of that. All right. Thanks once again, Chad. And as we say, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.